From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is a signing day update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in the studio, joined by our high school sports writer, Scott Wright. And Scott, let's talk about the guys around the state who have signed their national letters of intent. But actually, let's start with two guys that didn't sign today, guys that were pretty highly regarded this past season, one from McGinnis, one from Norman North. Tell us about these guys and why signing day wasn't a day that they signed.
Well, I was out at Norman North this morning. They had all of their signings at 8 a.m., and everybody was kind of curious if Brandon Marquette, their quarterback, was going to sign. He did not. It's really surprising. There's always a guy or two in every class. Those of us who cover high school football closely are just baffled by the recruiting process. And there are always the success stories later of the guy that had to walk on and ends up playing in the NFL and things like that, but or go to JUCO, whatever it might be. But I saw Brandon Marquette play 5 or 6 times. I lost count, honestly, how many times I saw him play this year. And we're talking about 6A competition. Played Tulsa Union twice. He's playing against Division I level defensive backs and defenses. And he had statistically the best passing season in the history of 6A football. It was the number 2 yardage-wise, the second most yards a quarterback had thrown for in any class, over 4,600 yards, 48 touchdowns, led Norman North to the state championship game where they lost to Union. He's only 6 feet tall. I get that, but he's got the mind, he's got the arm. The fact that he goes unsigned was really surprising leading up to signing day. The fact that we got here and he didn't sign today didn't necessarily surprise me, because I thought that he might wait and see what other options might come about. Somebody decommits or flips at the last second. Somebody ends up scrambling, needing a quarterback, and he can find a spot. He's also going to have his choice, basically. He'll have his choice if he doesn't get a scholarship of where he wants to go walk on at, because just about every college that they've contacted has said if they didn't have a scholarship, yes, he can absolutely come walk on here. So he'll have his choice to find a program that he fits into. And the second being Rubel Go at McGinnis. He's even more baffling because he is a 6'2", 200-pound receiver, defensive back. He can return kicks. Really is a guy who just makes football plays. He was competing at the 5A level against some of the best talent in the state. McGinnis makes the 5A championship game against Carl Albert. Just an overall very talented and gifted athlete. The knock on him is his speed and his kind of quick burst acceleration. They say he's not fast enough to be a slot receiver, not big enough to be an outside receiver. I might disagree a little bit on that one at 6'2" and 200 pounds, but I think he could be a great safety, which is a position on defenses at the college level that's becoming so much more important. But we'll see what happens with him. He's waiting to see what happens. He has a backup plan, and he in his mind is he's not looking forward to not playing football. But if it doesn't work out, he has a college plan in mind to go to OU or OSU, major in business, and go on with his life. So we'll see what happens from here on out. Signing day might be coming to an end pretty soon, but the football recruiting process is not over for either of these guys.
Well, and Scott, I think it probably bears mentioning that, even locally, Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy had his press conference earlier today announcing that they had left open a scholarship. They signed one less than they actually have scholarships for. So it's not out of the question that programs might have an option for one of these two guys to come in and play. And you talked about walk-on situations, but it's possible that a scholarship could potentially shake out for one or both of these guys before everything's said and done with.
Absolutely. There are so many things that happen, last-minute recruiting situations and things like that kids are still making decisions today or were flipped out of their commitment last night to a different school. A lot of things are still happening right now. A lot of wheels are still turning, and you don't know what might happen by the end of today or by this weekend as things shake out. You never know where that scholarship might pop up at.
Definitely so. We'll continue to follow that, as those two guys, as Scott said, very highly regarded, very good seasons this last fall for their respective high school teams. So we'll see what happens to both of them. Scott, as we look more broadly at this class, we don't have the final numbers in yet, but it looks like this is going to be an extremely deep class, possibly over 40 Division I signees, and some interesting landing spots, if you will, for some of these guys. How do you sort of how do you wrap your head around this class? And now that signing day is here, to see the final decisions of all of these players, how do you sort of rate this group of recruits?
It's been a really interesting class to watch because this class really kind of had it all. You had some elite prospects at the top, 5 guys who were All-Americans in the big All-American games, Army and Under Armour and those. But then you had this depth that was just incredible. We're pushing 40, could get up to 50 depending on if you throw in some of the FCS guys and things like that. Really a chance to have a lot of guys out of this state going on to play Division I football next year. It's one of the deepest classes we've had in a while, and one of the best as far as the star power as well. Guys that you think have a chance to go in and be playmakers immediately, and be long-term players at their colleges. And like you said, there's been a lot of different colleges that don't often come here and recruit people that are coming in here either to recruit and a lot of times signing people. Arkansas, even though they're right next door, they hadn't signed anybody. They had 2 Oklahoma guys on their roster this year. Both were seniors. That was the last time they recruited anybody out of Oklahoma. They came in and got 3 this year. Memphis has at least 3. We'll see what happens at Southmore later today with Javarius Owens. He was committed to Memphis, could go back there, might go somewhere else, but they came in and grabbed 3, and they've had some success here lately. Arizona State got Evan Fields from Midwest City earlier this week. UCLA and Notre Dame and places like that were coming in to recruit him, and those are schools that just don't come around here a lot. Nebraska has been coming in here more under Mike Riley, and they came in and got DeAndre Thomas from Mustang. So some really interesting names popping up. San Diego State came in and grabbed a Tulsa Union receiver late, which was an interesting one. I don't know that I've ever heard their name pop up at all on the recruiting circles in Oklahoma. So really interesting. Obviously the internet has changed so much with kids getting their huddle links to their highlights on Twitter and sending it out, and you never know who it's gonna land on the phone or computer of. So it's really changing recruiting, and it's making it a lot of fun to see these kids get these various opportunities from parts of all around the country, or right here in Oklahoma, where we had 10 guys signed at OU or OSU, a bunch more at Tulsa. So. It was a really fun class to follow and watch how it was going to progress.
Yeah, that 10 for Oklahoma State combined is the first time there's been double digits since 2009, so speaks to the depth of the class that these 2 Power 5 programs would think highly enough of guys in the state. Lastly, before we let you go, Scott, maybe the surprises of the day were some guys that had Division I talent, beyond the guys that didn't sign that we talked about earlier, but Division I talent that ended up junior college signees instead. Top of my mind is Rowdy Warner out at Jones. What about some of those junior college options? And I mean, obviously those guys still have a chance to go Division I eventually, but some surprise there in your mind?
Yeah, a little bit. Rowdy Warner was definitely a surprise because Texas Tech had come in late and scooped him up, and it had been kind of quiet. Nobody really knew that NEO was in the picture there. I tell you what, NEO is doing such a great job. They've rebuilt that program. They've fallen off there for a while. They've rebuilt that program now, and they've become so good at turning out Division I talent and getting them on to the next level. They've got a lot of guys out of this class that are heading on to the next level. So other JUCOs are coming in as well, but NEO is really the big focus, and they're doing a great job of getting these guys ready for the next level. So it's been really good to watch that program rebuild itself and be able to take guys to the next level who can't get to the D1 level right out of high school, to give them that second chance to move on.
All right, our signing day coverage continues. We'll have Bob Stoops' press conference from Norman later this afternoon, as well as more in-depth videos from our OU, OSU, and high school coverage team as we wrap up National Signing Day 2017. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.